Alright folks, today we're going to be creating the design for our CO2 Dragster. I have my template and I have my blank. For this blank, I'm going to be using a pine 2x4 blank, but you'll be getting a balsa wood blank. So you're going to notice that on the template that I've kind of X'd out the places that you have to keep. So we got to make sure that as we draw around those places that we don't cut those out as we're making our car. So I'm just going to quickly kind of sketch out what my design might look like. I'm using pencil to do that. So I'm going to go on the axle, come up around the power plant, leave a little fin at the top, just removing a little bit of materials. I'm going to take a little bit off of the bottom too. Down to the axles. All right, and once I have my basic design done, I've done this super quick, but you're probably going to want to spend a little bit more time making sure that everything is symmetrical and looks good. Now I'm just going to color in the parts that I want to remove. That way I know that that's going to be gone. Makes it a little bit more darker and you can kind of see the shape of what you're going to make. I'll do the same at the bottom too. So there's going to be the basic layout of my car, my dragster. So I can do this, so that's going to be the side view. Now I can think about the top view. So if I turn this upside down, or if I even look at it from the bottom, this is going to be my top or bottom view of the car. So I'll do the same thing here. I'm just going to kind of make a little design here and kind of make it look like a bit of a race car. I'm going to try to make this as symmetrical as possible. So if I go over 2 blocks on the right side, I want to go over 2 blocks on the left side so that it comes out looking even. Shade in here. So I'm going to do the same thing here. On the top, you really want to make sure that you're being symmetrical. So what I could do is like count and make sure that all my lines match up evenly. So I could count over 2 and make sure that it doesn't look wonky once it's made. So like I'm going to come over here and make sure that on both sides it's kind of this in the same part of the square from the other end. All right, and I'm liking that. So I'm just going to shade in that part that I'm going to get rid of. And there will be my car. So the next step is we're going to cut this out. Now I have the side view that will fit over the side. So I know where my wheel and axles are going to be. I know where the power plant will be. All right, we glued the template onto the blank, and now it's time to drill our axle holes. So I'm going to be putting them right on the X at the front and the back. I'll line up the drill bit, make sure it's right on the X, and then I'm going to clamp down the blank to make sure that it doesn't move. All the way through. Okay, to start making our cuts, we're going to be using a bandsaw. A bandsaw has a long blade that is like a rubber band almost that wraps around two wheels. The wheels spin around and around, making it so that we have a continuous blade running. Now what's really important about using the bandsaw is this blade is pretty thin, and we can cut and turn at maybe about a 10 or 15% of an angle, but we do not want to turn our piece of wood at like a 45 or even a 90-degree angle because it will snap the blade. So as we're cutting, we want to keep in mind that we can turn a little bit as we cut, but we don't want to turn a tremendous amount to where it snaps this blade. So if I'm holding the blank like this and cutting in the middle, my fingers are about 6 inches away. Now if my fingers are going to be closer than 6 inches, I want to use a push stick. A push stick allows us to push the piece of material into the blade, and if the push stick gets cut, it's not as big of a deal as if your fingers get cut. So I'm going to start off with just this tiny little piece right here, and we'll cut that first piece off. So I'm going to start up the bandsaw. And for this first cut, I can keep my fingers pretty far away from it. I'm just going to cut off the nose of the dragster. I'm going to push it in and guide it through. And you want to go fairly slow. Give it enough time for the blade to cut through the material. Next, I'm going to cut this bottom part. Now for the bottom part, I'm going to want to have some relief holes because this is a really long cut. I'm going to cut a relief hole maybe every 1 inch so that the material breaks off as I cut it. If I have material that's near the blade while I'm cutting, I can take the push stick and push it away with the push stick. So I'm going to make my relief cuts first. I'm just going straight forward and then straight back. Alright, I have a bunch of relief holes in here now, so as I cut this, these pieces will fall off. Now I'm going to try to make my cut. So I cut through here. I can make my relief cut a little bit bigger to cut off that last piece. My push stick to push my material out of the way so my hand's not near the blade. So I'm just taking off a small section at a time. Alright, and my car is starting to take shape. Now, Some of this is a little rough. I can sand this down to make this a little smoother because you're seeing some of the cut marks there as well. All right, I'm gonna get you guys a little bit closer so that you can see how I cut the top. All right, this is a good lesson. I have a piece that is stuck in here. I never want to stick my hands in here while this is moving. Notice that I went ahead and just turned off the whole machine. Now that the machine's off, I can either use my push stick, try to push it away, or grab it out because the machine is off and I can't get cut. And here we go. Okay, for our last cut on the side of our CO2 car, we're going to use a coping saw. Now you're going to notice with the coping saw, it has an incredibly thin blade. This blade is really made for cutting curves. Now because it is so thin, it is easily breakable. Once again, just like with the bandsaw, if you turn this too much, it will break. So if you turn it more than about 5 or 10 degrees, it will snap. Likewise, when we're using this, we don't want to put our hand on the top and push down. The way that this cuts is by going back and forth. So if you are pushing down, it is not going to make it cut any better. It really needs to go back and forth to make it cut. Anything you do with a coping saw, you should be going back and forth. If you're making a curve, if you're taking it back out of the wood, you should always be moving it back and forth. If this blade does break, then you want to take careful consideration of where the top goes. The top looks like this, and if we lose this top, then the rest of this tool does not work anymore. So if you do break a blade, and it could happen, make sure that you keep the top. Bring the top to me, that way you don't render the tool useless. So let's check out how we're going to cut this. I'm going to put my piece into a vise so that it holds it. Now when I cut, I'm going to cut holding with both of my hands. I'm going to hold this handle with both of my hands. I'm not holding it like this. I'm not holding it like this. I'm going to hold it with both of my hands, and I have to pull it back and forth. So I'll go back and forth with it. Okay, we're a little closer for this shot. I want to show you guys kind of up close what it looks like. Remember, this is the wrong way to do it. We don't want to push down. Notice what's happening to the blade as I push down from the top. It is bending that blade, and that leads to it breaking. So we never want to push down. We don't want to hold it here either. We're just going to grab it with both hands and bring it back and forth. And it takes a while to cut through. This is not a power tool. So you have to move your hands. You have to follow the line that you want to cut. And because that takes a little longer, I would get the bigger parts with the bandsaw, and then you can cut the smaller parts with the coping saw. And then I could just sand that out, or I can try to cut that down a little bit more to get it where I want it. My next stage for my CO2 car will be to cut now the top design.